The Angels need a third baseman, so should they trade for one, sign one, or promote one? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and the #1 sports podcast network in all the land. So how should the Angels fix that third base problem? Should they trade for a proven third baseman? Should they sign a really good third baseman? Or is there someone in-house that they can promote from within? We'll talk about that in just a moment. But first, we want to thank FanDuel, our sponsor. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is Jon, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother Jon.
Hey, we're entering our fourth offseason here as the host of Locked On Angels. We just wrapped up our fourth full season, and there's lots to talk about this offseason, of course, with our Halos, including what kind of moves are they going to make, and how are they going to address the third base situation. Of course, we discussed Anthony Rendon and the possibility of his retirement on yesterday's show, but the Angels have been planning to move ahead without him anyway, Mike, which is kind of the right call considering he hasn't been on the field. And so last year they addressed it with Yoan Moncada, and it'll be interesting to see how they address it this year. Let's start with a trade. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, MLB.com writer Mike Petriello said that Nolan Arenado has indicated that he's willing to be less choosy with his no trade clause, meaning that he could waive it for any team that tries to acquire him. So the question is, should our favorite team try to acquire him? First, let's take a look at some numbers on Nolan Arenado. He's going to be 35 in April. John, his slash line last year, 237 batting average, 289 on base, and just a 377 slugging percentage, and an OPS plus of just 87. 100 is average, so he was not average last year. This is his weakest full season mark since his rookie season in 2013, and it's a continuation of a 3-season slide that followed his 2022 season when he hit 30 home runs and finished third in the NL MVP race. Johnny signed for 2 more seasons, and he's owed $37 million, and that's not even counting the $5 million that Colorado is going to have to pay him this next season. Now, his offense isn't great, but Johnny, his defense still kind of good at third base, right?
Yeah, he's got a 3 outs above average at third base just last season. That puts him in the 81st percentile among all MLB players. And he's projected to be the 22nd best third baseman in 2026. Now, there's 30 teams, of course, so that might not sound like much, but you got to think about, the number of third basemen that people will be using. And last year, he was the 24th best third baseman. Now, the most concerning number here, Mike, is the hard hit percentage. Remember, about a year ago in the offseason, we were discussing Nolan Arenado and whether or not the Angels would try to acquire him in a trade. And I said, if you want to know what a decline is, if you want to know what regression is, you look at all of the aging numbers, and that's speed and movability, and specifically one of those is hard hit percentage. How hard are you hitting the ball, and how often are you hitting the ball hard? Now, it's down from the 75th percentile a decade ago. That makes sense. Of course, it's naturally going to fall, but Mike, it's down to the 12th percentile in each of the last 2 years. And over the last 2 years, the comparisons have been made to hitting roughly the same as like Mickey Moniak, Jake Fraley, and Michael Conforto as well.
Those are not names that you probably, no offense, but don't want to be in those categories, especially if you're Nolan Arenado. Now, here's why it's a conversation, John, because the Angels had baseball's weakest third baseman last year. Their situation was not a good situation in 2025. They had a weighted runs created plus of just 85 and a Fangraphs WAR of negative 0.6, which was worst in the league.
85!
I made 85? Oh, 85. It's just 450 off the pace. Okay, now Rendon possibly out of the picture completely. We hope so. We haven't heard anything yet, but we're hoping that that's the case. Johnny, as I ask this question, I feel the answers are already coming in the comments, and I think I know where you're leaning, but it is a question that we've had a lot of everydayers reach out to us about, including everydayer Davey Brunn, who listens in Arizona. John, should the Halos try and acquire Nolan Arenado?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, Mike, because the problem with Arenado is, again, the numbers that show your aging, the regression numbers, they're all there.
Yeah.
All the indicators are there. However, I'm very interested in the fact that the Cardinals, when they traded Sonny Gray to the Red Sox, Mike, they ate $20 million, $41 million that he's owed. Now, I know that you might be like, $41 million for Sonny Gray. They did a bunch of restructuring. There was a lot of back pay in the original contract. And so from my understanding, they moved some pieces around, and basically Sonny Gray is going to get the $41 million that he's owed over the next 2 years. And part of that discount is the Cardinals eating $20 million of that. So essentially the Red Sox will pay him $21 million. They also did get a pitching prospect, a player to be named later, and then Richard Fitz, who was a big leaguer with the Red Sox this year. With the Red Sox. And in my opinion, if the Cardinals are going to move Arenado, they're going to have to eat some salary. And like you alluded to earlier, he can't be as choosy about where he wants to go. He's going to have to waive that no trade clause. So is he a solution at third base? I think he's a solution. I don't think that he's the solution. Some of the numbers here are not very promising, Mike. A 666 OPS. He's not even hitting for average. He's not getting on base a whole bunch. The slugging, of course, is down. And then I'm just trying to look at like the counting numbers that he had this year. 18 doubles, 52 RBIs. How many runs scored? 48. So,
yeah,
it's not looking good. And I just wonder, the defense is great. And certainly we can't argue with good defense over at third base. But then you might as well have Luis Rengifo. Oh, I shouldn't say that. What I'm saying is maybe it's a better defender, but it's still kind of Luis Rengifo-esque without the switch hitting. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of the numbers that Arenado is going to put up offensively, can you hide some of his numbers in this lineup? I think you can. Is that worth, $37 million for the next 2 years? Like that's not worth it to me.
I find it interesting that we as fans, we talk a lot about money and we're like, I don't want to pay that much and I don't want to do that. It's just because we've been conditioned as Angel fans specifically to know that that's probably the first conversation that the Angels have. So I'm going to try to ignore the money for just a moment because it is a lot of money and, they're trying to get rid of Rendon, all of that stuff. I think that if you go and get Nolan Arenado, you're prioritizing defense.
Yeah.
You're not prioritizing offense. And I think that you need to prioritize defense because the Angels need to prevent runs this season. They did not do that well last year.
No.
If you go and get him, you just have to know that this is what you're getting and you're paying a lot of money for that. And he's not going to be spectacular at third base, but he is going to be better than what you were last year. If you don't get him and you go with what you had last year, John, here's the slash line for Yoán Moncada. 234 batting average, 336 on base, 448 slugging, and a 783 OPS. Now, that slugging is much better than the 377 that Nolan Arenado had last year. And that on-base percentage, 336 to 289. It's almost as if you just try to get Yoán Moncada back on this team instead of getting Nolan Arenado. Moncada is going to be 30. He's a switch hitter, very injury prone. You have a 35-year-old aging veteran who has been good in his past. That sounds similar to what the Angels currently have in Mike Trout, although I might get in trouble for that Mike Trout slander. But that's kind of what they have, an aging veteran who's not as great as he once was, and he costs a lot of money, but can play decent defense. I think you have to say to yourself, if you're Perry Minasian, we're going to make this trade. We're prioritizing defense. But that means that you can't give up some of the nonsense that other teams are going to want to give up for, like, I don't know, other players, right? Like when you have to give up a a high prospect and then a starting pitcher to get a guy to come to your team and then they're going to send some money over like the Red Sox did. I just don't know if the Angels will want to do that. Like, do you want to give up a prospect to get Nolan Arenado? Because it probably would take a prospect, somebody that's kind of on the verge of coming up to the major league level. I just don't know if it's worth it, especially if he's going to bring this slash line and it's been a 3-year slide from where he was. It just doesn't seem like it would be a great move for the Halos.
Yeah, there's nothing about this that adds up to what would make sense for the Angels. Now, I was just looking it up, Mike, over at third base last year, negative 25 outs above average combined between the Angels third baseman. That's everybody over there. And negative 19 defensive runs saved.
Dude, I did better in church league softball than
seriously.
These guys third base. Good Lord, that's terrible.
So let's hope that we can solve the problem as we continue our conversation. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, what about a signing and maybe an in-house option? Well, we're going to get to those options coming right up.
NFL Sundays, they move really fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels a whole lot different. That's what makes live betting so much fun with FanDuel. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. And with FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift right in front of you. A receiver gets hot or defense tightens up, or maybe Brock Purdy fakes out the best defensive player on the Browns and he runs into the touchdown. Such a great game, by the way. FanDuel lets you jump in on every moment and make bets on those moments, keeping you locked in every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to get into on all of the action, you can with FanDuel. Start at FanDuel.com. Place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast. So can you.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network out there. And we appreciate you making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Hey, become an everydayer. Come join us on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button as well. Whether you're watching or listening and you're an everydayer, get in the comments section on YouTube because it's the best way to get in touch with us and be part of the conversation. Give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels, at Super Halo Bros as well. We'd love to see you there.
High five to those audio listeners. We just surpassed 1 million downloads for the year on the audio side for Locked On Angels. So thank you so much for that.
Love
and
that.
You're tuning in for some great content, like what are the Angels going to do at third base? And we would love to hear from you. So make sure that you're commenting below if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're on the audio side, come over, hang out with us. We would love to hear from you. We've discussed the possibility of the Angels signing Kazuma Okamoto. He's 29 and he's from Japan. He's a veteran guy. John put up solid numbers in just 77 games last year. Didn't play a full season due to injuries. He was hurt in May after a collision at first base, hurt his elbow. He returned in August and continued to play well. Now, last season, here's his slash line in Japan. 322 batting average, 411 on base, 581 slugging, and a 992 OPS. Before his injury, he was slashing 327, 416 on base percentage, 598 slugging, and a 1.014 OPS. That was before his injury. Now, after the injury, just played 8 games, John. He slashed 263, 333 on base, 368 slugging, and a 702 OPS. Now, the number that stands out to me, and I know it was just 8 games, small sample size, is the slugging percentage.
Yeah.
It went from 598 before his injury to, in just 8 games, 368. And because he hurt his elbow, that did impact his power. So I know, again, small sample size, but do those numbers as an Angel fan, do they concern you at all?
Nah, too small. What's that? I think you should leave sketch. Too small. That's what I think is the sample size is just too small.
Got
right
it.
There, Mike. And for 8 games to kind of sum up what obviously he's going to be recovering from that injury. It's going to be something that is going to affect his play when he comes back. So I'm not too concerned about that. I look at especially the on-base percentage. Look, I know that everybody says like hitting in, NPB is a lot easier because of the pitching is not as, hard throwing as in MLB, but on base percentage, like a big part of that is actually taking some walks, right? It includes
Good
your
eye at
hits,
the
of
plate.
course, but also it's having a good eye at the plate. Like you just said, this guy solves all of our solutions. It solves a lot of the issues that the Angels have had. He's not fantastic over at third base, but Baseball America says that he is above average. And really that's, especially after last year, the kind of production we were getting over there defensively, anything is an upgrade at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. And the guy not only plays third base and fills that need, but he can also play first base. He can back up Nolan Arenado. John, he even has experience in the outfield and could add depth there in case of an injury. And you know that always is the case with Mike Trout and Jorge Soler on this team. So he could be somebody that could fill in out there as well and move around the diamond. He could add a lot of depth, which the Angels really, really struggle with in the last few years. Plus, they're getting a player that is hitting his peak. He's 29. And those 29, 30, 31, 32 years typically are some of the best years for baseball players. John, does it concern you at all about him coming over from the NPB and being a part of Major League Baseball? Pitching is very different. Yes, he has a good eye, but can he be somebody that if the Angels sign him, that they could count on to be a productive player?
Yeah, I think with, the hitting for average and the good eye at the plate, and then he's not necessarily going to smack you a lot of home runs, but it looks like, Mike, based on those slugging numbers, and we all know he's not a home run hitter all the time. It's good gap to gap stuff. It's going the other way. It solves everything the Angels need, both defensively and offensively. I look at this and I think of Brendan Donovan, who is somebody I wanted in my GM episode. He's, of course, a Cardinal. He can play second base. He can play third base. He can play the outfield. So he's versatile as well. He's a lefty bat as well. And I think to me, with Okamoto, I think that it's kind of like a Brendan Donovan, except maybe not as versatile. Of course, he plays the corners, but he can play the outfield, like you mentioned. I just think that this is the right way to go. And not Murakami, because Murakami adds a lot of problems that you and I have discussed on the show previously that the Angels already have. Tons of swing and miss, tons of strikeouts, and a bunch of power. And the Angels just don't need that right now. So I think Okamoto is the solution. Now, does he automatically join the Dodgers? Like, is that what's going to happen here? Like, is there a world where Okamoto comes to the Angels? What do you think?
I think there is, because what I'm hearing from the different players that are coming over from the MPB is that what is it? Tatsuya Imami is not wanting to play with the Dodgers. He's said that very clearly. Like, I would love to take them out. I would love to play against them and beat them. I think that might be the attitude for a lot of other players. We've heard from a lot of our everydayers who are from Japan that have said, like, they don't want to trample on the status of somebody previous on that team. Now, what happened with the Dodgers is kind of a unique situation. Obviously, they're a winning team and they're going to pay the money. So as you and I have said on this show, people are going to go where the money goes. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Dodgers end up getting some of these guys.
Right.
But at some point, John, there has to be a cap, right? There has to be a lid to all of the players that you can get and all of the money that you spend. And I also think at some point, a player has to go, yeah, all I'm doing is riding the coattails of these guys. I'm just Kevin Duranting this situation instead of doing it my own way, maybe. And I get that you want to win, and I get that you want to be competitive. I get all of that. That doesn't mean that guys are going to want to come to the Angels, but I do think that it does open up the possibility for Okamoto to come to the Angels, who has said previously that he actually loves the West Coast. He's a fan of the Angels because Shohei was on this team. I just think everything kind of lines up here. I do think that they may have to give an extra year and maybe an extra $10 to $15 million to get him here, because this isn't a team that is super attractive, but it can be a team that I think if you get the right players around the current players, they could be really competitive, and competitive, not in the definition of Perry Minasian, but competitive in the definition of they're actually in this thing,
right?
The AL West, or getting a wild card berth.
Yeah, actually being a good team. I think Okamoto is interesting because he fills a short-term need that for the Angels, you would hope, and we're going to talk about in-house options later, but you would hope that they have in-house options who can come up and play third base. At the same time, I think that if you get 3 or 4 years of Okamoto, I think that does a lot for you, and it's not too big of an investment. And maybe it doesn't have to be 3 or 4. Maybe it could be 2 or 3, like you said, but you might have to add that extra year with the money. But for him to be 29 years old, like you said, right in the middle of his prime, I think prime in my eyes is age 27 to like 31. And so you're going to get a lot of that out of Okamoto. And I think that's significant. I think that it's a short-term solution. It kind of reminds me of, remember Yunel Escobar played third base for us for a long time. It wasn't a permanent solution, but he was pretty good over there for the years that he was here. And I think that is an important part of the equation as well, is that it's not a huge commitment. It's more of, hey, let's fix this right now. And then you have time to draft and develop and get somebody up there.
Well, and what fits the Angels really well is that he is somebody who is going to be good right now. And the Angels need somebody who's going to be good right now. And if they're going to do what they've done the last 5 years with Perry Minasian as the GM, they need to do everything right now. The fiscal Angels only think about this year and only this year. And he fits that window. He fits that narrative. That's why I think he is the best option. John, I think that he helps with the defense, even though he's not a top-notch defender. But I think he also helps
better than anything we've had. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you shared the numbers, like negative 25, terrible stuff.
Yeah.
Like outs above average. They were awful. They were the worst team at third base last year. And so this is a huge improvement. So I guess what I'm saying is that you really just improve your defense with this move, but you also help your offense because he is somebody that's going to hit more doubles than home runs. He is somebody that's going to be on base more often than maybe a Rengifo or a Moncada. He's somebody that's going to be out there. He's been consistently healthy until last year with that elbow issue, and that was just a fluke thing when he ran into another first baseman. But he did come back, swung the bat, had 8 games. He's going to get full off season. He's going to get full spring training. I think that every indication is he's going to be in there and be fine. And John, isn't it also true, the narrative of players coming over from the NPB, they're just ready to go, and it doesn't matter how you're going to use them. I mean, Look at what happened in the World Series just this last season, right, with the Dodgers. They're throwing the same pitcher out there as often as they can. Guy starts the day before, and then he's out there in the game pitching the last couple of innings. I mean, Yamamoto is a freak of nature, but I think that's kind of what you get when you bring people over from the NPB. These players are there. They want to be dedicated. They want to be good. In fact, I'll even address this. We had Mirakaiku, I think is the name, who commented on our show yesterday, and they talked about, in regards to Anthony Rendon getting money, they told a story about a former NPB baseball player who was playing, didn't play well, got hurt, actually gave money back and didn't require the last 2 years of the contract and apologized to the team.
Yeah.
That's the culture and context that these players are coming from, which I think fits who the Angels are trying to become and why they're trying to get rid of Anthony Rendon. So Okamoto is a guy I think that will really be a perfect signing for this team.
Yeah. Like you said, it solves a lot of issues. It's a win now kind of player. It's a guy who takes care of a solution right now. If they go out and get him, I'm going to be over the moon if they're able to make that announcement that he signed in Anaheim.
Well, we talked about a trade, and then we talked about signing somebody. And I think that the Angels will probably go with signing somebody. I don't know if they'll trade for somebody. They might surprise us, John, and make another big move like they did with Taylor Ward. I just don't know if they have the pieces for that to go and get somebody that could be competitive. You mentioned Brendan Donovan. There's other players out there like Alec Boehm. I mentioned trading Ward for Alec Boehm. That could be a really good move. But there's also another option. But this option I'm just not super confident in. And it's the in-house option.
Right.
There's not really great depth specifically at third base for the Halos. The name that's coming up often is Denzer Guzman. Now, he's played third base and has some good experience in the minor leagues. Played 43 games at third base just last year, John, between AA and AAA. That's 363 innings at that position. And get this, he had a better fielding percentage at third base than he did at shortstop. Now, again, small sample size compared to his time at short, but he does have some third base experience. Got a little taste of the majors last year, hit well in a couple of games, and then the pitchers caught up to him, right? And then he had to adjust. And that's what you're going to get from a young guy who is just 21 years old. Is there a scenario, is there a world where the Angels give Guzman a shot to be the everyday third baseman?
I think they're going to give it to Oswald Peraza before that happens,
Mm.
before they give it to Guzman full time. I know Peraza, in my world, and I'm sure in your world too, he's a bench guy, and he's a good defender that you bring in late in the game to be a defensive replacement. Obviously, he was a good team player because he was playing first for the first time, and because they didn't have a solution over there at the end of the year for first base, so they put Oswald Peraza over there. But Mike, he's played at the major league level, both shortstop and third base, and did a lot of that for the Yankees. And so for Peraza, I think on the pecking order and the depth chart, I think it would go to him first. And there's always the potential that Peraza's bat gets back to what it looked like in the first couple years that he was in the game. And in the first year he was up, he had a really high batting average. He looked like the future for the Yankees. And then the bat just totally fell off. I've said this before, and I'll say it one more time. I think that the Yankees move really fast, and they move fast in the sense that they need guys to help them win right now, because every year it's playoffs and World Series. That's the goal for them. And that's just the way the Yankees are, right? And so I don't think that they have time to kind of figure things out with Oswald Peraza, to tinker with his swing and do all these things. And the truth is they gave him, I want to say 2, 3, 4 years. They gave him opportunities. He's had lots of opportunities with the Yankees, but I think the team has just kind of passed him by. And with the Angels, they move at a slower speed where they can work with these guys. They can figure out some stuff. They can figure out, hey, what's been going wrong with your bat the last couple of years? Do I trust the coaching to figure that out? That's TBD, because we got a new coaching staff, and that's certainly going to be one of the things that we watch coming into spring training, and of course what we hear from the coaching staff themselves. But in my opinion, while Denzer Guzmán is the future, I think Oswald Peraza would be the guy that they go to in the immediate, and that doesn't excite me right now unless he comes into spring training and shows out, and it's against major league pitching that he shows out against, which even that's iffy because major leaguers are figuring out stuff on the mound, like, hey, maybe I'll try a screwball today, right? Like they're doing that kind of stuff. I don't know what would convince me to be like, I'll take Peraza. So in my opinion, the in-house options are not very exciting.
John, I think they're going to go with Peraza. In fact, I'll make that prediction. I think that they're going to go with him. I think that they're going to prioritize maybe getting another arm.
Don't put that evil on me.
I know, Ricky Bobby, come on. But I honestly think, knowing how this team has operated, I would not be surprised, because he is under contract for 4 more years, and it's going to be arbitration years. So he's going to be cheap unless he really performs. And he's going to be the next Louis Rengifo for us. He's somebody that is going to fill a lot of different roles. So he may not be the main third baseman. I could see them, though, running with Peraza and prioritizing pitching. So if that's the case, and they prioritize pitching, and they get a really good pitcher, Michael King, or they get somebody like that,
sure.
Are you okay with that? Or, I mean, obviously we're Angel fans and we're just going to have to grin and bear it, right? But are you okay with that if they prioritize one more pitcher and then maybe signed Kenley Jansen and called it a day, and they didn't fill that third base spot?
You can't run Bryce Teodosio in center field and Oswald Peraza at third base. You just can't.
Agreed.
You can't have both those guys in the lineup at the same time. They can't be your everyday guys. Could they be good everyday guys down the road? Sure, but entering 2026, you can't have both of them in the lineup. So when I talked about, like, hey, maybe you can hide a Peraza in the lineup, or maybe you can hide a Guzmán in the lineup. This lineup's not good enough right now in terms of the outfield and the infield. I mean, Christian Moore, what did they say at the beginning? Perry Minasian said at the beginning of the offseason, Christian Moore is going to compete. He's going to come in and
he's going to have a chance.
He's going to have a chance. And it's like, okay, well then are you addressing second base?
Yeah.
Or are you just going to give it to him? Or who's he competing with? Right. And if he is competing, it's with the likes of Guzmán and those guys. So I just,
Kyron Paris. Yeah.
Kyron Paris. Right. And look, I would have Kyron Paris in the outfield this season. I would take that. But you can't have Peraza, Teodosio in the same lineup. Now, speaking of Christian Moore, there has been talk about maybe trying him out at third base, but then that opens up a second base hole, right? So, I mean, every option in every direction you go, I just don't think in-house is the solution because there's too many holes in the lineup at that point. Mike, I think they still have some trade capital that they can use, especially like minor league depth, but I don't see them pulling from the major league roster. So I think it's going to have to be a signing. I think it's going to have to be somebody that they go and get, like Okamoto. And again, the Arenado trade just doesn't make sense. Would I like to have Arenado on my favorite team? Yes. My fan blindedness says, oh, that'd be awesome.
The 2022 Arenado.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe even before that, right? Seriously. But the fact is like, if I'm sitting here trying to figure out solutions for the Angels in 2026, that's not a solution to me. I really think the only option here is going out and getting Kazuma Okamoto. And I think that would be a really great thing for this team.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Be sure to like and subscribe while you're here on YouTube. It's the best way to stay updated on all things Angels throughout the offseason.
If Oswald Peraza is starting at third base on opening day, I'm going to be so mad at you. Thanks for joining us. Be sure you give us a follow at Locked On Angels on Twitter, at Super Halo Bros on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show. Get in the comments section on YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Hit that like and subscribe button while you're here as well. Do you have suggestions for third base? Who would you like to see them go and get? Maybe it's maybe there's like a waiver wire guy out, not waiver, Rule 5 guy out there somewhere that they could give a chance to. We'll see. In the meantime, Mike, what do we have on deck for Wednesday's show?
Well, you sparked a thought, and so I would love to explore this more. What is the trade capital? What do the Angels have right now that they could trade and get a quality third baseman or a left-handed bat or a center fielder or another pitcher? Like, what could they trade right now? You and I, we're going to put our nose to the grind, and we're going to figure that out. I'm going to bring some trade capital. You bring some trade capital. And then maybe let's bring some ideas of trades. Like, what could we get? We'll talk about that tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that conversation. We hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
All right, all you sickos who love this Angels team and all you everydayers who love to watch and listen, we'll see you back here on Wednesday.
Peraza hits 321 home runs.
I will eat this hat that I'm wearing.
This is the MLB The Show?